Welcome to another teacher tip with Mr. Long, and this video is particularly for students. So if you're a teacher, I recommend that you show this to your classes. We are looking at 5 exam tips to help you during an exam. We've done previous videos on what to do when you have an upcoming exam and what to do the day of the exam. This is when you're actually in the exam ready to write. So let's look at the 5 tips. Tip number 1, write notes. When you get an exam paper, then you can write whatever you want on that paper, and that's not technically Crip Notes because they gave you the paper. You might have particular rhymes in your head or formulas that are fresh in your head straight as you enter the venue, and if you wait until later on when you need them, you might forget them. So now is a good time to, whenever you can, use your pen, write down quick little notes on that exam paper, little rhymes that you've memorized, so that when you are doing the paper and you come to those questions, you can refer back to your little notes that you made on the exam paper. Tip number 2 is to create a time schedule. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we want to work out the minutes per mark for each question. So let's take an example. Let's take this exam paper. There you can see it is 150 marks and it's a 3-hour paper. 3 hours meaning 180 minutes. That's times about 60. We're going to take the minutes and divide it by the number of marks. We take that 180 and we divide it by the 150 and we get a 1.2 minutes per mark. Now, if possible, you can try ask for this information before the exam, so you can do this beforehand, but if not, you can quickly do it before the exam starts. So what does 1.2 minutes per mark mean in this case? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to times that number by 10. And what that means is I'll get 10 marks, and that needs to be done in 12 minutes. So take that 1.2 times by 10, you get 10 marks for every 12 minutes. So then what I'm going to do next, I'm going to double those numbers now. So times those numbers by 2. So I'm going to get 20 on the one side and 24 on the other side. What I'm doing now is for a 20 mark question, I need to take 24 minutes. Now I'm going to add those 2 columns together. So what's 10 plus 20? That's 30. What's 12 plus 24? That is 36. So a 30 mark question should take me about 36 minutes. And then I'm going to double second row. So what's 2 times 20? That's 40. And 2 times 24, that is 48. So 40 marks should take me about 48 minutes. I wouldn't go bigger than that. Maybe you might need to, but that gives you an idea of how long you need to take for each question or section of work. So then when I get the exam paper and I can see what the different sections are, I can actually work out how long it's going to take me. So for example, it's very easy. That 30 and that 20, that's straight away it's easy because I can see 30 marks, 36 minutes, 20 marks, 24. But those other ones are a little bit more difficult to work out, but we can guesstimate now that we've got our table. So let's take that 25 mark question there at the front. Well, 25 marks, that'll be somewhere between 20 and 30, so somewhere between 24 and 36, and you can take a little bit of a guess and we can make it like 30. So you know it's going to take you 30 minutes for that question. So by using this table, you can make a time schedule. And what I then do is I look at what time the exam starts and I actually write down the time that I should end each question. So let's pretend this exam starts at 9 o'clock. That 25 mark question, I need to take 30 minutes. So if I'm starting at 9 o'clock, I should be finished that question at about 9:30. And then I do that for all the questions. Now I know it seems like a lot of work, but if you do this quickly, if you set up your table and you can work it out very quickly, you can get these little markers and then you've got an idea of where you must be at what particular time in the exam. And that way you can avoid those situations where you are not finishing the exam or that you're running out of time because you're spending too much time on a particular question. This will give you a better indicator of when you must end each question. If you end a bit early, that's great. But if you get to 10:06 and you're still on section B, you might need to think about finishing off quickly so that you can move on to section C, or leaving out parts so that you can get to the easy parts of the other questions. So create a time schedule. The other tip is question preparation. How do we prepare for the question? So let's take an example. First tip is to highlight keywords that you know exactly what you are trying to accomplish for that question. So let's have a look here. Discuss. That means use your words. Don't just list one-word answers. Discuss means actually use your words to explain a particular thing. They want 2 things in this question and they want 2 advantages. So we need to discuss 2 things and there must be 2 positive things. By highlighting these words, we can get a better idea of what exactly they want us to answer. Let's take the other question. Do you agree with the statement? That means we need to say yes or no. So we need to specify, do we agree or not? And then give a reason. We can't just say yes and no, and that's it. There's a part that says give a reason explaining your answer. So if you say yes, give reasons why you are saying yes. If you say no, give reasons why you're saying no. Underline or highlight those particular keywords that you know exactly what you are needing to do for that question. look at the mark allocation. That tells you how much information you must give in order to get the marks. So in this case, when they say 2 advantages and there's 2 marks at the end, then it's a mark per advantage. If this question was 4 marks and still 2 advantages, then that would require a lot more discussion for each advantage. In this question, it says give a reason and there's 3 marks. So maybe it's 1 mark for the do you agree? We don't know. Maybe it's 2 marks for the reason, but 3 marks is quite a lot. You need to use your words. Don't just have 1-word answers. Don't just have a simple, it's efficient or it's stronger. Use your words, explain, give examples, give as much information as you can. So make sure that you look at the mark allocation to guide you on how much information you should be writing. Tip number 4 is when you need more paper. Now, it often happens in an exam, you're running out of paper, you need another booklet, for example. So when you need more paper, and this is the key, do not wait until you are at the end of the last page. Put your hand up early. When you see you are on the last page or on the last page of the book, before you get to the end of that page, put your hand up and continue doing your exam so that while you are waiting, the paper will arrive or the invigilator will come and bring you what you need so that you don't have to wait when you get to the end of the page, so that you've got it the moment you finish that page. So make sure that you put your hand up early to get the paper that you need before you finish that last page. And then tip number 5 is basically exam technique. Some techniques that can help you in exam. We're going to cover 3 of them. So let's look at multiple choice. Now, what do we mean by multiple choice? How do we do multiple choice questions? Well, the first tip and the biggest one that you can do is never leave it out. Always take a shot. You can take a guess with these questions at the very least. So make sure that you don't leave out any multiple choice questions. Next, I have 3 techniques that I suggest when doing multiple choice. So let's look at technique A. This is the one you start with. I want to read the question and identify the correct answer straight away, and then I know that is the correct answer. That is the ideal situation. If that doesn't work, then I go to technique B. And technique B says, read the question and eliminate the answers that are definitely not the correct answer, and then you are left with what's possibly the correct answer. Hopefully you will be left with only one answer, then it's ideal. But if you've got a few, then at least you've got less options to choose from. You've got a better chance of getting the right answer. And then technique C, this is the technique I would only use at the very end, is I haven't had a B for a while, so then I'll use a B. Or look what your previous questions are. Maybe you haven't had many C, so you'll try a C. You choose your technique, but don't do technique C first. Look at technique A and B first. Matching terms is another type of question you get, where you get a whole bunch of statements and you've got to match them with a particular term. And again, in this case, don't leave them out. Make sure that you answer all the questions. But I would suggest when you are doing this question, first do the ones that you know. Don't try to do them in the order. First identify, do I know that one? Yes, I know that one. No, yes, I know that one. First do the ones you know, and then you can eliminate those. And then when you do the ones you don't know, you've got less options to choose from. So then the ones that are left over are a lot easier to determine, because that's all that's left. You don't want a situation where you guessed one of the earlier ones and that ends up being a better answer for one of the ones that you know later and you don't see it now because you've chosen it. And then lastly is the order of the questions. So when you get an exam, a lot of the times people do them from the first question to the last question. That's fine, but you don't have to do that. You can jump around, and I would recommend that you do that if you know particular questions particularly well. Maybe you know the history, so section A you know well, but you don't know methods and calculations. So you're going to jump from A to D because you can do them in any order. After that, you go, okay, I don't know the essay topics. I'm going to go jump back to B, and then after B, I'll do C and E. So you can do the questions in any order. If you do that, I suggest that you do each section on a new side or a new page, so that when the exam is finished and you compiling all your pages together, you can put them in the actual order, that section A, B, C, D, E. And those are my 5 tips for what to do during an exam. So write notes when you get your question paper so that you can remember those little rhymes and little formulas before you forget them later on in the exam. Write a time schedule so you can work out when you should finish each question. Do your question preparation. In other words, look at the questions, look at what they're asking, look at the mark allocation. If you need more paper, put your hand up early and look at your exam technique on how you can answer those questions as well as you can. And those are my 5 tips for the exam. And now, good luck for those exams. For those other exam tips as well as other videos that could be useful to you, go to our YouTube channel for Teacher Tips, click on that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment. We'd love to hear what we can help you with. And remember, don't do it the long way, do it the Mr. Long way.